Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. It is lovely to see such a full house. I think we are going to be a pretty massively large group today. So, good timely reminder, please make sure you're muted and do make sure that that is throughout, especially if you unmute to say something. Please remember, because there are so many of us, that could get quite chaotic. So, it is my great pleasure to welcome you all here and thank you for joining. I know we're all busy with a million things, so it's amazing to gather like this to recognize this moment. For those who don't know me, my name is Madeleine McGurk. I'm the director of ITAC, which is the International Teaching Artists Collaborative. And we are so pleased to be hosting this event today. For anyone who doesn't know, ITAC was born in 2012, co-founded by Eric and a colleague Mara in Norway, and began with conferences every 2 years for teaching artists who were all over the world and not yet connected to each other. And since, there have been conferences every 2 years. And then in 2018, we became a year-round organization. And so we've had this amazing growth and trajectory of beginning as an idea of Eric's and Marit's and becoming this much more formal, expansive network internationally of people who do this work. And you'll hear today all about the book and why it's so incredibly relevant to the work that we're doing. So if there are a couple of bits of housekeeping, if there are any technical issues at all, don't panic. If you get cut off, don't worry. I will just restart the link and we'll pick back up wherever we left off. There is a chat function along the bottom and it'll pop up on your right-hand side. Please feel free to be super active in that throughout the call and reaching out to each other with questions or comments. There is a transcript available too if you are listening or watching, and that would be helpful. It's available. And the session is recorded. Anyone who registered will have given consent, but just as a reminder that that is the case. For anyone who misses it, we want to make sure it's available afterwards. So we ask you to please keep your camera on, but of course, if you're more comfortable switching it off for the recording, that's no problem. Please remember to mute if you're not speaking, just so we can make sure things run smoothly. And I think that's everything from me for the moment. So with that being said, I am happy to introduce one of our co-hosts for today, Natalie Ossa. Natalie is a longtime friend and colleague of Eric's. He met her in the Global Leaders Programme and then worked with her when she led the European Orchestra Network. And now they work closely at AIM, where she's the head of programmes. AIM is the Academy of Impact through Music, and an innovative advanced training program for teachers in music for social change programs on 4 continents. So Natalie, I am very happy to pass over to you to kick us off today.
Thank you, Madeleine, and good morning, good afternoon, and even good evening for some of you. Welcome all to this celebration because, yes, we're going to talk about a book, but what a wonderful opportunity to celebrate our dear friend and mentor, Eric. I feel very honored to accompany all of you today, and I must say that Eric is one of the most powerful and passionate and caring leaders I have met in my life, and I bet a lot of you share the same feeling. So before we start, thank you, Eric, for sharing with us your time, your thoughts, and for sharing your book. Just another couple of brief housekeeping announcement. This event will last less than 1 hour, and it would be nice if you can leave your camera on, if that's possible for you. Okay, so it is customary to introduce the author at events like this, and let me introduce Eric briefly, and I would skip most of the things you already know about him. Successful Broadway acting career, 8 books, 60 keynote speeches, 41 years of work at Lincoln Center, 12 on the faculty at Juilliard, traveled to teach and learn in over 30 countries, all of that. Instead, I will mention 3 things you probably don't know about Eric. One, he started and ran a business that in 7 years became the largest of its kind in the United States. It was a publishing company that specialized on the research about American lifestyle trends, with a staff of 12, of whom all were also practicing artists. Second thing, for 7 years, he was a New York City auxiliary police officer, patrolling the streets as a volunteer cop. And third, he has planted thousands of daffodils in the land of his house. So there is 1 week in the year when you cannot get him because of daffodil madness. So Eric, can you tell us a bit about the book?
Thank you, Natalie and Madeline, for creating this event and hosting it. Yeah, so here's the book. It is the first book ever written about teaching artistry for people who don't know what the hell teaching artistry is. We've needed it for 45 years, and it finally occurred to me that we needed this as a kind of calling card for people who don't know what teaching artistry is, a simple, direct way to introduce this global phenomenon, this under the radar workforce that's so powerful in change. So I pulled together and boiled down what I had learned in 45 years, and I used language that speaks to people who aren't insiders. I was able to use language I learned. I had this great gig for years where I would pull together, the Americans for the Arts would pull together business people and politicians who weren't really big fans of the arts for us to learn from them and find out how to connect to them. And it taught me to use a language that is more universal than our usual inside language. And that's the way this book is written. It's a mix of stories and advocacy. And I hope it is the door opener that we can put in the hands of those who should be supporters of teaching artistry to get them started.
Erin, would you like to read a little bit something from this book for us?
Of course, that is customary, and people maybe get a feel for the book. So I'm going to read right from the beginning. And this focused on what is the key distinctive feature that teaching artists bring. Everyone brims with artistry. Call it what you will, deny it if you like, we all have it. We use it here, there, and everywhere we make things we care about, like cooking a special meal or getting into a great conversation or adding final touches to important presentation, or making up a story for a child, or making up a story as a child. Of course, there is artistry in symphonies and sculpture, and there is an artistry to bricklaying and pie making. There are books about the art of tennis and the art of motorcycle maintenance. We even use the term medical arts. So what? Why does artistry matter a lick in the complex, speedy, pragmatic world we inhabit? Slow down and read on. You will recognize this ancient, underutilized power tool that not only creates beauty, but also creates change. This book honors the arts workers who know how to use that tool and who delight in activating its use, and who do so often quietly, but with remarkable effectiveness around the world.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Eric. Since we have this once-in-a-lifetime gathering, we thought to learn a little bit from you. So we have a few poll questions that we would like to ask you. So for this first one, please give 1 or 2 answers, but not more than 2 answers, okay? So if Madeline could please share this poll with us.
Yeah, this is such an amazing gathering. We thought we'd learn something from you. What are the most distinctive features about teaching artistry? What's your opinion? I've got some opinions in the book, but we're curious what you think. 1 or 2 answers. It's like watching election night results. And I got to say, I don't know what it means, but a fox just ran across my lawn while we're doing this. So there's something foxy about what we're doing here.
Okay, we have 75%. We also need almost a 10% of you to participate. There you go.
Great, let's close that poll. And look at the results. I guess the most popular choice is the teaching artists see everyone as creative, even people who don't think they are. Man, you got it. That's the key. That's why a teaching artist can work with a dentist and an environmentalist and a social justice warrior.
Yeah, we actually have a 33% of our teaching artists are masters of high engagement learning experience. So we also see them like this engagement that the art can provide for us.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason they're so potent in schools, because they activate young people's engagement in learning in places that can be pretty dry. High engagement, they can activate artistry in others and then guide its direction. Yep, these are the key ideas. All right, so you pretty much agree with what's in the book, although we didn't give you much choice to disagree with what's in the book yet. You may have your chance yet. I'm going to put a challenge for you in the chat box. Take me just a moment to get to it. And this is a challenge to imagine. I've lost my place, but this is a challenge for you to imagine if teaching artistry were well supported in the world, as it should be, and as I dream it might be. If it were, what might become possible? Imagine the field of teaching artistry succeeded in becoming visible and funded and recognized for what it can do. What are some things that might become possible in the world? Yep, Simon, we need a little trickster energy to get our field up to where it should be. What are some specific things you might see in the world? We're starting to see some visions here. Communities of belonging, a key word that's coming up around teaching artistry around the world, probably in response to the pandemic. Changes in education, social resilience. Yep. In the book, starting on page 50, I list 9 things that we might see in the world that I allowed myself to blue sky vision. And I'll just tease you with a couple of them. One of them is social prescribing. I don't know if you know that term, but it allows doctors to prescribe arts activities in place of drug prescriptions, prescription drugs, and for insurance companies to pay for it. And teaching artists are ready to do this, to address depression, to address a sense of isolation, to address any number of medical problems. It already exists in the UK, and with a little bit of greater visibility for the power of what teaching artistry can do, it will come around the world because it saves money and has better health outcomes. I also imagine every school has a creativity coach, a teaching artist who works with every teacher in that school to activate the creative engagement of that school community. I picture teaching artists as a built-in part of every disaster response team and every refugee community, because it is already proven what a powerful positive effect the presence of artistic engagement brings to recovery, to handling trauma and depression, that where it now exists, people are over the moon about the positive results. And teaching artistry, I envision it as becoming one of the essential roles that people think of when they pull together disaster relief and refugee community organizations. I see it coming. And if we can get the visibility of teaching artistry up to share what it's already accomplishing, these things become more possible. Okay, Natalie, I'm done with that little possible bit. We got another poll. We've got another poll, and this is a challenging one. And it refers to the history that teaching artists have not been very good advocates for teaching artistry. There's a lot of good reasons for that. And we don't want to go into the reasons, but it's just a fact of life that teaching artists are not in the habit of saying, I'm a teaching artist. I am part of a national and global community. Here's how you can get involved. Here's how it might be beneficial for you. So let's take this poll. And why do you think individual teaching artists and organizations that depend on them, why don't they advocate more for the wider field? What has blocked a channel that I hope this book can open?
The first answers went to they don't have time, but now we're seeing a rising in they didn't have any guidance or support, getting more than 25% now.
And I'm seeing a lot of people are recognizing they don't feel connected to the field. They're practitioners, they do beautiful work in programs that hire teaching artists, but there isn't the sense of being connected to something bigger. Let's see, are we close to closing this poll?
We're 80%. We're waiting for 15% now to vote.
Yeah, I'm seeing answers in the chat. Yeah. A lot of recognition of how it is for teaching artistry out there. And yep, there's not a single answer, but Zoom polls force one. All right, let's take a look at these results. So our preponderant plurality choice is that fact that they don't feel connected to the wider field. There's every reason to understand why this would be so. The hope is that this thing can make a difference. I'm eager for this to serve within the field itself. I've been hearing from teaching artists who've been reading it that it actually clarifies what are the basics of the field for them. It opens up a sense of how capacious the field really is, how there is a global community, and it may spark that door opening. There's bad mixed metaphor. It may open that door for people to feel they can start to contribute, that they actually have agency to build the field. We've also got, I guess, second most popular choice is they didn't have any guidance or support. Maybe no one ever asked them or told them, we need you. There is some guidance on the websites that have been in the chat box. The website of the book has advocacy advice. And the main advocacy advice is, you know how to do it. Just do it. You know the person you're talking to, who the doctor who has an interest in the arts. Give them the calling card. You know how to do that. The person in the arts organization who doesn't really know about teaching artistry but should, you have a calling card. Now it's our chance to step up and do it, to take it. And it clearly in our answers here, it's not about caring. It's limitations in their capacity and not feeling connectedness or invitation to join. Beautiful. Okay. Natalie, let's go on.
Yeah, I have some questions for you, but I invite everyone, if they would like to ask Eric any questions, you can type it in the chat box, so we can also include some of your questions. But the first one, Eric, what is like to write, what it feels like to write this book?
This book has been different than my 7 other books. I remember many years ago, as a teaching artist, I was leading a group of teachers to visit a sculpture studio and studying the work of this one sculptor. And one of the teachers asked the sculptor, how long did it take you to make that piece? And I could see he was pissed off by the question. And so his answer was kind of snarky. And he said, it took me 35 years to prepare and then 3 hours to make it. All right. Well, this book took me 45 years to prepare, but really only about 3 months to sit down and write, and then another 3 months to get it together, to get it out in the world. This book came so easily because it really was a distillation of what I've been saying in the world and what colleagues and I have been bringing into the world for a long time. So it was really a matter of pulling together the most salient statements, the distillations of what we're going to have impact for my imagined reader. And my number one imagined reader was Mackenzie Scott, as you can imagine. Someone who probably doesn't know about teaching artistry, but is going to have a feel for it. You know of Mackenzie Scott's in your world. Well, I wrote for her. I wanted her to get what's powerful about teaching artistry and what it actually is and how it's different than other things. And then in the book, there's more than a dozen stories of the way it's actually making a huge difference wherever teaching artistry is allowed to flourish. So that's where the book came from.
Okay, we would like to hear another perspective from those 3 months you mentioned of work. And we are so lucky that we have today with us Trisha Tanstal, Eric's wife. And Trisha, would you like to share with us how was, from your perspective, what you saw on Eric's when he was writing this book?
Thank you, Natalie. I would love to share. I'm so happy to be here today with this amazing assemblage of powerful, passionate people. So yeah, I would love to share with this with you. As the person who experienced Eric sort of writing the book day in and day out and week by week, I can tell you that to me, it felt like Eric didn't write the book exactly. It was more like the book erupted out of Eric. It was kind of like living with an active volcano. You know, when Eric is working on something that he really cares deeply about, he can be kind of a maniac. is not news to any of you. And there's nothing he cares about more than teaching artistry. So he was definitely a maniac of a sort while he was writing this book. He was a good maniac, a maniac for good. I was editing chunks of the book as he wrote them. Sometimes we do that for each other. And he would like email me a section. I would open the email. And by the time I had edited maybe 2 paragraphs, the whole next chunk of the book would be in my inbox. It was fast. And it's actually easy to understand why the book was written so fast. As he's said, he's been thinking about these ideas for more than 40 years. He's been explaining teaching artistry to people who don't understand what it is for almost 45 years. And, it occurred to me that that's this kind of the same span of time as it was just when he started thinking about it. It was just about when Jose Antonio Abreu started thinking about and implementing El Sistema. And those 2 ideas, of course, are very connected from different hemispheres, but really intrinsically connected. So am I comparing Eric with Maestro Abreu? I mean, I'm a little biased. One closing thought, there's a beautiful Sistema-inspired program in France called Passeurs d'art, which means smugglers of art. So I love to think about us, all of us assembled here, and the more of us out there as smugglers of teaching artistry. We have this bold, incredibly important idea that's dressed up like a fun little book. And we are, all of us, sort of smuggling this ostensibly fun book into the spaces of power in the world, the foundations, the government agencies, the places where there's money and power, so that it can work its magic of persuasion in all those places. And if we can smuggle strongly enough and widely enough, our field, I think, can truly become a field of power and impact. And I am delighted to be part of this merry band of smugglers.
Oh, thanks, babe. That was so nice. Can you imagine the benefit of being married to an editor? Fair.
Nah, the editor couldn't keep up this time around.
Eric, why did you write this book?
I wrote it out of frustration that the world was somehow, we weren't breaking through our own community, our talk community. Even previous books that I've and others written was for the community, to help us get our identity, to help us improve our practice, to support our work. But we weren't getting seen. We weren't getting funded. We weren't growing the way the potency of our practice merits. And so I wrote it as a kind of cri de coeur to change the status quo. And coming with that is this drive in me to activate the potential of teaching artists themselves and those of us who we work with, to actually start taking charge of advancing our own field.
And when you imagine these 5,000 new advocates campaign, what were you hoping for? What were you picturing?
Pretty much what I was just starting to say, which is teaching artists feeling they got a thing now. They've got something that can help, that I hope empowers them to feel they can make proactive contact with that funder, with that person in medicine who has an arts interest, with that cousin of theirs who should care about teaching artistry, with that friend who never really understood what the hell it is that you do. There is this tool to help. And in the 5,000 New Advocates campaign, I've been able to raise some money to help people so they don't have to buy a bunch of books and then send them out. We're going to be able to support teaching artists doing that. And if you go to the book's webpage, there's an invitation for how you can join. You can get a couple of configurations of books at discount. In fact, you can get books at cost if you can afford that. And that helps us stretch our money a little bit further to provide books to people who can't really afford to buy them. We're just going to send books to you for free to use for these advocacy purposes. So my vision is teaching artists around the world with copies of this poised to build up their program or their nascent community of teaching artists or even their own career, and for them to contact us through the book webpage to join the 5,000 new advocates campaign, change the status quo from the grassroots up, the way this field has always grown.
We have a couple of minutes. If you want, we can take some questions from the chat box, if that's okay.
I haven't been following them. In fact, the only thing I noticed in the chat box was that I had misspelled my own name. Not a promising moment for an author.
Already fixed. Maybe Simon Sharkey, would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hi, Eric. Good to see you, and thanks for this brilliant book. I'm looking forward to getting it out to everybody. So, in actual fact, I'm going to a conference in a week's time, which is International Studies Conference, full of the right people who need to have this book in their hands. They don't know anything about teaching artistry. And my question was about the artificial intelligence. And do you think that it will have any, its arrival, do you think it will have any impact on how the book is received by people who don't understand teaching artistry? And or have you any thoughts on how we can harness the power of AI to be able to amplify that eruption?
Right.
Content?
Thanks for that question. I've got a brief mention of AI in here. And what I think it does, it's pretty daunting, and it's the newness of AI's impact on us is still just, we're starting to grapple with it. I think there's a huge potential in clarifying on a worldwide basis what it is that AI cannot do. What is the exclusive, distinctive power that teaching artists have that is the very thing AI, no matter how intelligent it gets, is going to be able to accomplish? What is creative intelligence? There's a whole lot of things AI can do, and that is the one thing we know it cannot do. So my hope is, and I'm not afraid to compare teaching artistry with AI. I mean, AI can write 50 pretty good novels in 10 minutes, but it can't elicit the artistry of another person. I don't think it ever is going to be able to do that. So I think it sets up an opportunity for us to make clearer universally the thing that we've got, that the world is now paying attention to. And I think that becomes part of our advocacy approach.
And we have one more from Helen Carnabel. Helen, are you there? Would you like to unmute yourself?
Hey, hi. Hi, everyone. And hi, Eric. It's Helen Carnavale. We worked together a bunch in Philadelphia and in Delaware years ago. And yeah, I hope everyone's well, including you, Eric. And my question is, I had started to work in, I guess, arts, heavy arts integrated education back then. And I started my own company, things like that. And found that the financial case was really not uniformly discussed or pushed forward by individuals or groups. Every organization kind of had their own thing going on, and certain ways of talking about it. And so I actually ended up, if you could believe it, working for this big Fortune 100 for the last 10 years, big business, hardcore stuff, right? And now I'm like, I want to come back and really advance this, and I'm still not seeing kind of a codification of those ideas in a way that can actually address financial benefits. So how do you actually capture the financial benefits and work together as much as possible to have those ideas advanced? So hoping that maybe your book might have some of those things, ideas in it, or maybe that's not the focus of your book. I'm sorry, I haven't read it yet. But if you could talk about that, that would be awesome.
Yeah, the book doesn't have a tidy little answer for that. It refers to projects, particular projects where financial advantage of teaching artist intervention has appeared. The amazing example in Systema Scotland, where the opportunity cost has been calculated to show that investing in a teaching artist program in a struggling community produces 5 times the social savings than the cost for the program itself. There's emergent research in the National Center for Creative Aging that teaching artist interventions with older people produces significant cost savings for facilities, significant reduction in prescription drug intake, great improvement in morale of the staff of those settings. But as a field, we're at the beginning of making the financial case for the benefit. I mean, we're still largely in survival and scarcity mode, and we're just starting to grow into being able to develop the kind of research that I hope you, Helen, will be a part of helping us develop. It's popping up in different ways in different countries. It's the next generation of our work.
I would love to do that. Thanks for the invitation. And I invite anybody on this call to, excuse me, I'm in total relax mode today, but I would invite anyone to contact me. I want to get plugged in really hard to this. So thanks for that. And I just turn it on the camera to wave hi. Hi.
Okay, great, thanks. Natalie, I think we have a few colleagues who wanted to chime in about some of the ways they're thinking of using the book.
Yeah, maybe we can call them one by one. And for time, I will ask you to try to use less than 1 minute to tell us about how you imagine you can use this new book in your own context. So Peter Atsu in Ghana, are you here, Peter?
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you very much. So briefly, I want to use this book to create a volcanic mental shift in the general populace of Ghanaians and teaching artistry in Ghana, especially with the teaching artists. And that's what I'm going to do with this book. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter. We also have Amir Shahid in Geneva. Amir has been working with ITAC to find ways to build connections between teacher artists and the healthcare industries. Amir?
Hi, everyone. So nice to be here. Lovely to see you, Eric, and to see such a nice group gathered here to celebrate this wonderful book. I just wanted to say, first of all, that it is so clear. Eric's pedagogical strength comes across so nicely in here because it's an extremely clear read that brings all the key bits. So from a public health perspective, I was really happy to see that there was already mention of specific initiatives like the one at Carnegie Hall with the Lullaby Project, and several mentions of social prescribing, which we've already discussed briefly today, which is a key component to the growth of public health. So I would love to use this to share with colleagues right now some of the key needs in the growing field of arts and health are the 2 words that Eric mentioned, which is advocacy and capacity building. And this is, I think, invaluable, particularly in a field which is very quantitative, to bring out all the aspects of teaching artistry that speak to those things that go beyond and transcend the quantitative, all of the processes, all of the key intangible elements to teaching artistry really would go very far to help train a new cadre of professionals along this intersection and hopefully convince people in policy and other decision-making circles. Thank you.
Thanks, Amir. And let's go to United States. Beth Brandt in Philadelphia. Beth, are you here?
I am. Hey,
And Beth, I'm
everybody.
going to interrupt for a moment just to tell everyone on this call, Beth has led the Bartol Foundation for a lot of years, and it is the only foundation I know of that has dedicated itself to building the field of teaching artistry. This long commitment to building the field, unlike any other foundation I have ever seen, and Beth has led that. Thank you.
Thank you, friend. So yeah, the Bartol Foundation, so just bartol.org. We're out of Philly, but now we're everywhere just because a lot of what we do is virtual. So we do professional development workshops. We do trauma-informed practice training, which in 2024 is going to go online, and anybody will be able to take it anywhere. So keep an eye for that. And I do think that that from what we know in the field, teaching artists are all, they're under-resourced and they're underpaid and they're overworked. And so I really think it's up to, those of us who can be allies in the funding community, in government, in other places. I could see, sharing this with my arts funders that are my colleagues who are in bigger foundations than just me at Bartol. To say, can you give this to the program officers that are in education, that are in health, that are in whatever, so that the funding community, because, sees that we can cross these kind of the silos of funding. We've had this same thing at Bartol, trying to get funding for our programs from other foundations, and they're like, oh no, that's the arts person. And we're like, but we're doing trauma-informed work, we're doing healing work, we're doing all this stuff. Oh no, that's the arts person. So if I can get the arts person in that foundation to give the book to a colleague to say, hey, we should be thinking more broadly about this, then maybe that's something that we can do. I mean, I feel like they could buy their own damn book, but hey, if they're not gonna, we'll figure it out. And definitely check us out, bartol.org, and join us also. So thank you all.
Thank you, Beth. And let's go to Clara Bloomfield in Scotland.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Eric. It's a real privilege to be asked to share my experiences of your book with everyone. Hi, everyone. My name is Clara Bloomfield. I'm a theatre maker, teaching artist, creative therapist, and lecturer from Scotland. I want to contextualise what I want to say about Eric's book a little bit, and it'll just take an extra second if that's okay, because I think it's quite important. In your book, Eric, you assert the belief that I do, that 80% of what you teach is who you are. And as a course leader at Edinburgh College in Applied Theatre, in my classes, I teach the next generation of teaching artists. They're part of the COVID generation. They spent the latter years of high school and their early years of university in their homes. It's estimated that 1 in 3 young adults between the age of 18 and 25 in the UK and the US experience a mental health, behavioural or emotional issue that has persisted following COVID. And this includes feelings of isolation and anxiety. And this is impacted in the way that students coexist in classroom environments and community spaces through making their circles smaller. And this is arguably partly due to the strict social isolations that they grew up with. But why is this relevant? I believe that making change to be a valuable resource, and it'll become a course text to my students next academic year. It's a resource that's just as much about empowering my students to be themselves as it is to be about teaching artists through celebrating who they are and the politics they bring to being TAs. I believe the integration of this book into the curriculum will teach the next generation of TAs not only about how to, and I quote, create safe and brave environments for engagement, unquote, but also teach them, and I quote again, that choice is a powerful act. Eric, you state in your book that when a community rises to challenge what is acceptable, activism begins. Your book, Making Change, will encourage these individuals to become aware and acknowledge their own privilege, and when it's necessary, to step aside and make space for others. The choice itself is a form of activism and allyship that is the heart of TAs. So I'm really excited to be able to share this with my students next year, because I believe that this can not only reduce their own sense of social isolation when they go in work placements, but cultivates environments where other people can have their voices heard and acknowledged, which I believe will lead to improved mental health outcomes for all concerned.
Thank you, Clara. And We had before Peter Combo, you raised your hand to one question, so we have a bit of time. Would you like to ask your question?
Yes, very short, and congratulations, Eric. For people outside of the field who have had very little association with the whole concept of teaching artistry, could you give us a 2-sentence or 1-sentence pitch that we would be able to say, look at this book in your field, even though you may not see that it connects?
The way I usually go about that, including at a wedding reception last weekend, is by asking and listening first for where there's an opening. I usually won't just barrel into a conversation with a business person or a scientist and blather what I think they should be interested in. I start by sussing it out, by asking questions, getting a feel, and looking for the opening. Once there's an opening of, oh, I've got this problem in my field, or, you know, I always struggle with this in my business, that's where I enter. So for an example, as it was the other weekend, this guy who's a law school professor, turns out that he loves his local symphony and is concerned that he gives away free tickets, but nobody seems to love what results, that they don't go to the symphony and then love it. Bingo, there's the entry point with that person. Well, there are people in your area who know exactly how to create a preparation, so the luxury of a symphonic ticket turns into a powerful event. With a medical person, I may hear something that tips off the story of the Lullaby Project, which in 30 seconds creates greater interest for people to realize medical challenges can be answered through creative engagement in a way they've never thought before. So I think the first rule of advocacy, and indeed we've got some information on advocacy on the book's website, is listening carefully with that deep listening that teaching artists bring to find the opening and then identify what the opportunity is there. So that's how I go about it.
Okay, we have a third poll. Eric, if you would like to explain it.
Yes. Okay, now we're getting to the serious part, people. We want to know, like I've, been expressing my earnest wishes and dreams and aspirations, but how many new advocates do you think you or your organization could cultivate using this book if you really tried? So here's the third poll, and the answers are anonymous, so you can be truthful. You don't have to look guilty or shameful if your answer is 0. But how good is the chance that this book really can stir up active interest, active action that we haven't had before in terms of advocacy? And no guilty looks if you're the person who says none or 1. My goodness. I'm raising money to get you books, those 8+ people. Look at that. All right, we'll give you just 5 more seconds. It's like a fundraising telethon, getting people to commit to take action. All right, so there we are. Look at those results. Extremely promising. better than I hoped, for sure, that people feel they can take action, they can use this thing, and that together we can get as many copies as you need to you so you can take action. And I think we can change the status quo. Natalie, I saw a question in the chat box I wanted to address briefly, which invites me to acknowledge that there are networks in place. ITAC is the international one, but there is the, Teaching Artists Guild in the US. There's more regional ones. There's TEMA, Teaching Artists in the Mid-Atlantic. There's Teaching Artists Connect in the South. There's Systema Europe. There are networks of teaching artistry that have been, I would say, underfunded and heroically growing, sustaining, providing resources. So tap into what they've got. They've done a lot of the foundational work. And I'm hoping this book can be helpful to them. I'm planning to ship some boxes to them too. How can we use the networks we've got and build new networks? Peter Atsu is building a network in Ghana. Where else? I mean, we have some Korean friends on this call. They've got an unbelievable network in South Korea. How can we use the networks we've got? ITAC has hubs in 4 countries. How can we use those hubs to advance the status, the visibility of teaching artists everywhere?
And this leads us to our final question, which is a very simple yes or no answer. So knowing the challenges to the field of teaching artistry at this time and the long history of invisibility and ineffective advocacy, do you actually think the 5,000 New Advocates campaign can make a real difference to the state of the field?
Great. As you're answering, we have 45 years of not succeeding in this way. There's a real vote of hope here.
We are feeling strong and optimistic as a group.
Yeah, I'm going to be able to sleep tonight. Super. All right. Look at that. Big vote of yes, we can do this. Thank you, Barack. Yes, we can. And you can respond through our website. You can go buy books right now at Amazon or bookshop.org if you prefer independent bookstores. You can join the 5,000 New Advocates campaign. All that stuff's on the website. So let's round this out, Natalie.
Yeah, Madeline is sharing with us the links where you can actually buy the book and how you can connect to the book and the following actions and how to be part of this exciting 5,000 New Advocates campaign. And Madeleine, I don't know if you have any other comments you would like to add.
Yes, I would like to thank everyone so much for such an active chat. I have been following this along and bookmarking different questions, and it is so exciting to have everyone in one place. But mostly, I want to say a massive thank you to both of you for being here to talk to us about this today, to talk to our community, and just to highlight some of the amazing things that are happening. I don't know if before everyone logs off, you want to save this chat, because there are a lot of links to organizations here, to resources, and I've been sharing the link to the book and to ITAC, but the resources here extend far beyond that. So I would really encourage everyone to save this and be in touch with each other. On a more practical note, if anyone has any questions about any of the content, if anyone wants to be in touch about the book and about ordering things, all of those contact details should be on the website. From ITAC's perspective, our whole job all day, every day is to try and shift the field forward, to try and shift the support systems and the ecosystems for teaching artists who work on the ground to receive funding, to receive recognition and visibility and support. And I think what we have here is a tangible tool to help us in that mission. And so I'm really proud that ITAC is taking such a role in this. Thank you to Eric for building it for us and handing it off so generously. But for everyone else on the call who, like me, shares that mission and is really committed to making things just that bit easier for teaching artists in their career and receiving funding and being valued members of the change and the social impact space, please do take this and share it widely, because when else do we get something that is specifically for us making our case on our behalf? So please, please join me, be one of the 5,000 advocates and rope in everyone you know who may be interested to do the same. So thank you so much.
And a quick closing comment from me. Madeline, can you save the chat for me? I'm not smart enough to know how to do that. And a little note to everyone that if you buy a book, 100% of the royalty income goes to ITAC. So it's going to support ITAC in another way too. So thank you all for joining us. Natalie, thank you for organizing it and guiding us through it. And of course, the biggest thanks to all this group of friends and colleagues and new friends and colleagues for joining for an hour to get a hopeful result. Like 96% think we can change the status quo. And now is the moment we head on out and do it.
Thank you all. I'll leave the call open for 2 minutes so you can save the chat, and we'll close off in just about 2 minutes.